Cinemime.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Cinemime. I am Floyd Stapleton, and today I will be discussing the film The Zone of Interest, which was released on December 15th, 2023, courtesy of A24. The film premiered at the Cannes Film Festival in 2023, where it won the Grand Prix. This film was written and directed by Jonathan Glazer, who has a pretty interesting filmmaking career. He started out directing commercials and music videos for bands like Massive Attack, Radiohead, Jamiroquai, before making his feature-length filmmaking debut with the 2000 crime drama Sexy Beast. He would follow that film up 4 years later with the psychological drama Birth, starring Nicole Kidman. It took him 9 whole years to release another film, but ultimately in 2013 he released what is arguably his most well-known work. That of course is his magnum opus, the erotic sci-fi thriller Under the Skin, which stars Scarlett Johansson, a film about an alien who comes down to Earth and ultimately discovers what it means to be human. This marked a turning point in his career. I feel almost as if with Glazer there was before Under the Skin and after Under the Skin. And how do you follow up with what is arguably one of the most monumental films of the 21st century? Here we are, 10 years later, as Glazer follows up with another film that feels in a similar vein to Under the Skin in the sense that they both focus on revealing uncomfortable facets of human nature and human behavior. That film is, of course, The Zone of Interest, which, like Under the Skin, was based on a pre-existing novel. However, The Zone of Interest is based on a true story. It takes place during World War II as we follow the family of Rudolf Höss, the commandant of Auschwitz. The film showcases his family living yards away from the camp. They live a lavish life with multiple servants and staff circulating around the house at any given time. They have a beautiful garden. They live in the lap of luxury. They live a very happy life right next to unspeakable atrocity. The central conceit of this film is that we as a viewer are never visually privy to any of the atrocities, but we can hear them nearly throughout the film. In the back of the sound mix, we can hear gunfire, screaming, the hum of machinery, sounds from the crematorium. We see smoke billowing from the crematorium and smoke from trains that contain new passengers coming to the camp. Johnny Byrne's sound design in this film is impeccable. It apparently took around a year to capture all the sounds that are buried in the sound mix throughout the course of the film. He had a whole library of sounds and meticulously placed them in the sound mix, so The Zone of Interest really does offer you two experiences as a viewer. There is the film that you see and the film that you hear, and the disparity between the two is very haunting. This film is an interesting companion piece to Under the Skin because while that film deals with the humanity of someone inhuman, The Zone of Interest deals with the inhumanity of human beings, in this case, real-life human beings. Höss was executed in 1947 at Nuremberg and was ultimately responsible for the deaths of over 1 million Jews, to my understanding, although my knowledge about Höss's life pretty much only extends to what is seen in the movie and from reading his Wikipedia article. We don't focus on the aftermath of the war in this film, of course. We only focus on a very specific period during the war. When people discuss the film, they always mention Hannah Arendt's phrase, the banality of evil, that this film demonstrates the banality of evil. In a way, I disagree. I think the events that occur in this film are anything but banal. There is irony in the fact that the Hösses are living a privileged life while yards away from them is unimaginable suffering. However, I don't agree with this idea that nothing happens in the movie, or that only banal events occur. That seems to be a common complaint for people who don't like this film, where they say that the plot takes a backseat to the concept of the film. I totally disagree. I think a lot happens in this movie. In every scene, there is forward momentum in the narrative. The film really only captures a few days in the lives of the Hösses, scattered over a period of time, I'm sure, but a good deal happens in these days. Rudolf discovers he's being transferred to a new city. His wife Hedwig is doing what she can to hold down her fort and protect the life she's built for herself and for her children. There's a subplot involving Hedwig's mother that I think is very important to the narrative. I think about critically acclaimed movies where, quote-unquote, nothing happens, and I can't help but think of the movie Jeanne Dielman. That's another film that delves into the minutiae of the life of a human being at a point in time that says a lot about the context of the society they live in this case over the course of 3 days. That's a movie where it seems like nothing of consequence happens, but over the course of the film we come to realize the devil's in the details, and her behavior really adds up to something profound. Little details become big events. I feel like this sentiment echoes in The Zone of Interest. Certain events may seem banal or like simple melodrama, but the behaviors in this film and the events that occur add up to something very effective and revelatory. I don't think this movie showcases the banality of evil as much as it showcases the humanity of evil. We know these are bad human beings that are directly and indirectly responsible for mass human suffering, but like everyone else, they too have lives and are human beings and have their own share of personal problems. And we can identify with them more easily because we don't see what's going on beyond the wall, because, like Hedwig and the Haas children, we never actually see any real carnage. I think the overall concept of giving evil a human face makes us realize that we are all capable of evil, whether we're the perpetrators or the bystanders. And the novel that this film is based on gave the main characters different names to my understanding, so it's interesting that Glazer chose to keep the real names of the protagonists to highlight that these were in fact real human beings. The zone of interest is very anti-aesthetic for the most part. There are no close-ups, it feels very clinical and impersonal. It almost reminded me of the Filipino director Lav Diaz in the sense that there's this aversion to getting too close to the protagonists, and of course the more obvious comparison would be Kubrick in terms of the clinical detached style. Glazer continues the hidden camera setup that he utilized in Under the Skin, and to my understanding there were like 10 cameras and 60 microphones placed all around the Haas house, so it's almost like Big Brother style filmmaking. Although there are key moments where these directorial flourishes break through the narrative, like in the middle of the film where the screen suddenly fades to red and the audio cuts out. It almost feels like that scene in the middle of Ingmar Bergman's Persona where the film itself begins to break apart and then the film along with the narrative sort of recalibrates after that. That very much applies to this moment in the zone of interest, because after the fade to red, that's where Hedwig gets the news that they're being transferred, and the narrative begins to shift. There's also two very interesting scenes using black and white thermal imaging, which shows a Polish girl hiding food for people in the camp, and she really appears as a light in the darkness of the rest of the film. A pivotal scene in the film features this same girl playing a piano piece written by Joseph Wolf, who is a survivor of the Auschwitz concentration camp, and it really is the most emotionally resonant scene in the film. In fact, just thinking about it sends chills down my spine. It really illuminates the power of art as a means of survival and a way in which people and events are remembered and crystallized. It's really powerful. Another pivotal moment occurs at the end of the film when it switches to present day and we see workers cleaning the Auschwitz museum. It's another very powerful moment that makes you reflect on everything you've just seen prior in the film and puts everything into perspective. Bookending this film are two very haunting pieces of music composed by Mike Levi, whose score for Under the Skin was pretty game-changing. These pieces feature the human voice in a really haunting way, and it almost feels like a slow but sure descent into a living hell. It's very effective given the context of the film, and to my understanding, a lot of pieces scored for the film were left out because there's almost no actual music during the film. After the title is shown at the beginning, the music just continues to play over a black screen for about 2 minutes, almost like the overture to 2001: A Space Odyssey, and it really is effective in getting you to pay attention to what you're hearing because that's, of course, one of the keys to understanding the film. I feel like this film would make a great companion piece to Michael Haneke's The White Ribbon, which is ironic because both films just happen to star Christian Friedel. Overall, The Zone of Interest is a very sobering film that uses experimental, should I say Glazer-ian, techniques to create a memorable and emotional experience. I would give this film a 4.5 out of 5. And that is my review. See you all next time.